Hi, welcome to the Movie Review Mom YouTube channel. I'm the mom and I do the movie reviews. And if you are new to my channel, yay, you found me. I'm so glad. My goal is to give you the heads up on filmmaking quality and content so that you can make the best decision as to whether or not you want to spend time or money or both watching a specific film. And if you are a subscriber who's returning, yay, thank you so much. I truly appreciate your support. So today the movie I'm reviewing is called Love in Zion National, a national park romance. This romantic movie is now available on the Hallmark Channel. It's rated TVG and is an hour and 31 minutes. So my movie review mom grade is a C plus, but probably really a C. But let me explain why. And I always feel bad giving a C, but my husband always reminds me a C is average. And I guess you could say it's an average movie or maybe below average. Let me give you the heads up. So I'm going to give you an overview in a nutshell, and then I'll point out things I liked and didn't like, as well as offer tips for parents, themes worth talking about, interesting lines or funny lines, if I found any. I'm trying to remember if I did now, and recommendations for other films that are similar, but ones that you might like better. So in a nutshell, the romance is directed by Sam Irvin. The writing credits go to Jacob Cooney and Briar Freed. So the story is about an assistant curator at a museum whose name is Lauren. She is out to prove that a set of ancient vases belongs to the Pueblo Nation. While in Zion National Park, she meets Adam, a native Puebloan park ranger who helps her on her mission. So there were some things that I liked about this movie. First of all, I'd never seen either of the actors in anything before. They all did a fine-ish job and include Cindy Busby, David Gridley, Raquel Gardner, Michelle Murphy, Monique Phillips, Burke Floyd, and Liam Woodrum. So Zion means sanctuary. So if you're hoping that this movie is going to include a lot of beautiful scenery of the famous Zion's National Park, you're in for a real treat. The cinematography is gorgeous. And what piqued my curiosity about this movie is I happen to live in Las Vegas, which is not that far from Zion. It's a couple hours drive, 2.5 hours maybe, depending on how fast or slow you drive. And it is just gorgeous out there. And so I thought, oh, I want to see a romance about Zion's. I need to go out there. However, don't go out in the deep heat of summer, July, August, because it gets hot out there. But they also have some little river runs that you can get in the water and float down the river. So that's good. But I digress. So the movie shows a passion for nature for sure, and those who love it and respect it. And I really liked that element. I appreciate that some of the characters worked very hard to ensure some ancient artifacts are protected and restored to their rightful owners. I mean, that's what the story is. We learn a little bit about Native American culture, and that's always fun and interesting. It made me laugh that Lauren talked about how she grew up hiking around Zion National Park and knew her way around the national park, but then got lost within minutes. Well, it kind of assumes that some time has passed, but in the viewing of the movie, it's like 2 minutes. Fun fact, Zion National Park is 229 square miles of beautiful red rock landscapes and vistas. It's one of the most filmed national parks in the entire United States of America. It's that beautiful. So now there were some things I didn't like or just thought could have been done better. For example, sadly, the Anasazi Indians are featured in this movie, yet they disappeared about 1,000 years ago. So the plot line of the story doesn't actually work. So as I mentioned, I live in Las Vegas, and one of my streets very close to my house is called Anasazi. So when I first moved to Las Vegas, I looked them up and realized, we don't have any living Anasazi Indians. A few years ago, I visited a museum on the UNLV campus that showcased a number of Anasazi artifacts that I thought were really cool. So I wonder why the writers chose to feature the Anasazi Native Americans rather than an actual tribe that had living descendants today, because that element is a crucial part of the story. It just seemed like not a lot of time and effort and research went into the telling of this story. That's a major plot point, and it doesn't work because they just didn't do the research. And it kind of talks down to the viewer. Audience members are smart and they catch on to little things like that. And I've read several reviews where they were like, just spend a few minutes Googling and you'll find out some things about your story. Also, it completely drove me nuts how Cindy Busby mispronounced the name of the park. She kept calling it Zion's, and it just sounded so weird to me every time. It's just Zion's. And it just made me realize she did not grow up there, like her character says. She's never been there before and didn't know anything about it. You would think if you're going to be a star of a movie, you would learn how to pronounce the names of the locations. Not to get overly critical, but come on. The leading lady's character is just a bit cocky and unlikable for my tastes. She was always complaining or whining or acting like she knew everything and wasn't humble and teachable. Here she was asking for help. Well, actually, she rejected the help and then got herself into trouble. So, anyway, characters like that just kind of drive me nuts. Now, the age difference between the leading couple distracted me. He looked way younger than she did. He's actually 32 years old, although he looks much younger. And Cindy Busby is 40 years old. So it was noticeable, in other words. The movie poster makes them look more equal in age, but then when you see them on screen, you're like, oh, no, bad casting. Some of the dialogue is not very good, and it always annoys me when characters hide things from each other and don't just communicate. It drives me nuts when characters don't explain something and then all these terrible things happen, and you're like, you could have just avoided it if you had just communicated. There wouldn't be as many Hallmark movies if that were the case, though, right? There was sadly no chemistry between the leading couple. That final kiss felt super forced. I want to root for the couple. I want them to look good together. I want them to have that chemistry and that you can see it online. And sadly, it was just missing. The Kachina doll, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly or not, but there's this Native American doll, looked like it was just bought out of a souvenir shop rather than this homemade artifact that's passed down through generations, like we're supposed to believe. And then another silly question and detail is, are hikers allowed to actually light fires in Zion's National Park? I don't know what the new rules are, but the last time I was there, the answer was no. So I'm thinking that part of the movie didn't seem believable. And it just looked like not that much thought went into all of the details. For example, the ranger and museum curator just took off for a week-long trek in the park, in the wilderness, with just a little backpack. So I'm wondering, where were their bottles, their bottles of water, their food, their other supplies? So the leading lady is staying in this big room somewhere on site at Zion's National and didn't bother to put out the fire in her fireplace right before leaving for this week-long trek. Stuff like that really bothers me. How about you? Comment down below. Let me know if you noticed those things, if they drove you nuts, or if you haven't seen the movie, if those things are enough to just persuade you to not watch the movie. Now, you might like the movie. I'm just saying. It was said that some judge was going to decide on this case affecting the artifacts any minute now. And I'm thinking, without all of the facts, without the witnesses, without both parties being present, that's not how the law works. And then shouldn't the park ranger prohibit bad guys from removing artifacts right in front of his face from the park? It's hard to believe that he's the only ranger in the entire park. Now, of course, Zion's has a lot of them, and yet we only see him and his mom or grandmother. Yeah, it was his grandmother, right? So, on a personal note, as an author coach, I have several clients who write fantastic romantic comedies. I wish that Hallmark would tap into their talents rather than trying to rush a script through and miss all of these details that could otherwise make a story very rich and detailed and enjoyable. So, Hallmark, if you're watching this, reach out to me and I will hook you up with my clients. They have spent so much time working out details and polishing their story that could then be turned into a screenplay. So I will hook you up. All right, let me give you some tips for parents. The movie is definitely clean enough for family viewing, although I think kids are going to be mostly bored unless they're big hikers or they like national parks and that kind of thing. Otherwise, there's nothing really controversial or offensive in the content other than there are some bad guys, who are trying to steal stuff. So some of the themes in the movie are Anasazi Indians, of course, rightful ownership, greed, heritage, nature, legacy. And I thought those were all handled pretty well. All right. Oh, I'm looking at my notes and I didn't write down any funny lines or interesting lines. So sorry about that. Usually I do, and I have them on my written review at moviereviewmom.com. If I think of any, I'll add them in. But if I didn't, that means there wasn't anything really memorable from the script. So wah wah. That's another big weakness. I think movies should have some takeaway line that you're like, oh, I got to remember that line. That's a great line. I'm going to use that with my family or my boyfriend or whatever, right? All right, so let me give you some recommendations for some other nature movies that you might enjoy. One is called The Nature of Romance, and that's a Hallmark movie done in a national park. And in fact, Hallmark is doing a whole series of national parks, which I think is a really good idea. In fact, I'm going to have to tell my client that she should start a series about romances in national parks. She would do a much better job. And reason I think I'm thinking of her specifically is because she does series of romances, like a collection of sports ones, a collection of high school ones, that kind of thing. Anyway, a classic is Romancing the Stone. Fantastic movie, not a Hallmark movie, but a Hollywood movie. But the reason I mention is that it was filmed at Zion National Park and it's got humor and lots of romance and lots of chemistry. Great job. And then this one will surprise you because it's not really a romance. I guess you could call it a bromance. It's Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Again, I mentioned this one because it was filmed at Zion's National Park. So there you have it. Thank you so much for watching my video and my review. I hope that if you do watch the movie, I hope you do enjoy it. And when you get a minute, run over to Instagram and you can follow me at Movie Review Mom, but you can also follow me as an author and author coach at Trina Boice, like voice, but spelled with a B. All right, have a fantastic day and I will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.